regardless if it's a contact form, a sign-up form for new users, commenting, or something more complex. Eventually, any form on the internet will start getting hit by bots and spammers. There are different ways in MODX to deal with that sort of spam. Letting it go through is one option, but you're probably going to spend a lot of time, sometimes money, on dealing with that spam. You may be getting charged per email sent. You may actually hurt client relations if you don't see their message within like a massive amount of spam that gets submitted through the same form, or it can just take, a lot of time. Asking users to complete a CAPTCHA, like reCAPTCHA or HCAPTCHA, can help. But it's getting more and more difficult to complete these because spammers are getting more and more advanced. So this tends to have a significant impact on the user experience, making it harder for customers or visitors to reach you in the way that you want them to. Google's reCAPTCHA version 3 is invisible and doesn't necessarily impact the user interaction. However, it does work by making this data giant track your users even more, collecting more heuristics about how they use your website and other websites. And that can be a bit of a privacy nightmare. Is that something you want to support? And again, as bots have gotten a lot more advanced, even reCAPTCHA is no longer enough to block spam, at least in my personal experience. My favorite solution to deal with spam is Akismet. Akismet is a solution built by Automatic, the team behind WordPress. While it was obviously built for WordPress and the use case that's most prominent there, the commenting, its use has spread way beyond that, and it's also available for any other CMS system. It does require a subscription for commercial websites, but it is quite cheap compared to the time you're probably spending dealing with spam right now, and it's also really easy to implement. Akismet uses machine learning to offer a very simple but effective solution to identify spam. It's constantly learning from form submissions around the world, around the internet, and is quickly picking up on new patterns as they emerge as spammers start to use them. It's also completely server-side, as there are no trackers, there's no changes to the user experience on your website, just to prevent spam. A real user will not notice Akismet is in use. And it's just really good at picking up spam without making those real users jump through different hoops just to get in touch with you or leave a comment on your blog. At modmore, we made a free MODX integration for Akismet. You can easily use it with any FormIt form, any Quip form for commenting, as well as a register snippet to scan your signups. It comes with a detailed component where you can see all the submissions that have been made through your website, just to make sure that there are no false negatives or false positives in there. You can also easily correct Akismet if it did get it wrong, just by clicking the spam or not spam button. There's also a neat little dashboard widget included, so you can show these big numbers, the number of spam messages that have been blocked, number of real messages that it led through, and the percentage of that onto your MODX dashboard. Setting up the Akismet integration is really easy. Just copy your API key from the Akismet dashboard and add it into the Akismet.api key system setting. Depending on what you're using for your form, there are different ways to do that. Let's start by looking at FormIt, which is the most common snippet for forms in MODX. What we need to do is add Akismet as a hook to that. So hooks are snippets that are run when a form is being processed. And it's important to note the order of the hooks. Akismet has to run before any other processing. So if you're, for example, saving form submissions to a database, or if you're sending them elsewhere, make sure that you check the spam before that. So put Akismet before any other snippets in the list of hooks. Next, you will need to map the different fields in your form, different input fields, to the fields that Akismet expects. So like I said, it was originally built for commenting. So what we need to do, we need to set the type of form. The one you most commonly need is contact-form. But there is a list of other types that Akismet also supports in the documentation. You need to specify in what field the author is, so the name of the person submitting the field. It might be a from input field or a sender. You also want to specify the email. If you request that in your form, and the content, the main message of your form, the main content of your form. There are a few other fields you can also specify. Those tend to be a bit more niche, but for example, if you have a honeypot field, which is meant to be hidden, you can also specify that in the same way. The full list of all supported fields is of course available in the documentation linked below. One more important thing you want to do when you're testing is to add the Akismet test property to your snippet call. If you don't do this and you start behaving like a spammer just by testing your form, Akismet may start recognizing you as someone that's sending spam, and you probably don't want that. Of course, when you're done with testing, when you've tested it sufficiently, remove this property, otherwise it will not be counting, it will not be checking for any spam. A full example of what a FormIt form might look like, as well as all the different fields and properties and how they sort of interact, is of course available in the documentation, link for which is included in the description below. Next, let's take a quick look at how you might do it with the register snippet. So register is used as part of the login package to sign up new users on your website. In this case, just like with FormIt, we need to add it to the hook system that it supports, but it's important that for register you use a pre-hook. The pre-hook runs before the user is created, which allows Akismet to indicate, okay, is this spam? If so, do not create the user. Again, if you have any other custom hooks that may be running, that you may be using, make sure to put Akismet before that, and we would need to map the fields in the same way. We start by setting the type to signup. This is a special type that Akismet supports and recognizes as being user signups. The author field in this case will be the name of the user. We will specify the email address if we have it, and the username would be typically the content. And again, make sure to add the test property if you're testing, otherwise you might get yourself identified as a spammer. So this works really well to block spammy signups. We had a lot of those on modmore websites, like in the thousands at some point. And Akismet really helped to narrow that down, and we very rarely, I think I've probably seen 3 false negatives over about 5,000 attempted signups so far. So Akismet is really good at identifying sort of like the fake signups from the real ones. Next, we can also use it, of course, for commenting. We can use it with the Quip reply snippet, which is a snippet that handles the form submission when you're creating a new comment. Again, just like on register, we need to add it as a pre-hook in this case, before any other processing, and you want to make sure that you map the fields correctly. Quip uses some standard fields, so you also always want to set the type to comment. You want to set the author to name, the author email to email. The content will be the comment field in your form, and again, you can add Akismet test is 1 to indicate that you are testing it. All of this and full examples are in the documentation. Now, these are all standard MODX packages and how you can use them with that. The Akismet package we provide also allows you to use it with any custom code. So if you have a custom form handler, or if you have some custom application of sorts that may also accept form submissions, but you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you can simply work with what we did already. I'm not going to go into the code too deeply, but let's just quickly review what that would look like. We start by loading the Akismet autoloader that we provide. Then we create a new instance of the Akismet service class, and then we need to collect the values. So depending on what you're working with, this could simply be the post array, the post superglobal in PHP, or maybe this is coming from somewhere else, but these are the submitted values from the user. We also need a configuration array, which is going to include the Akismet author, Akismet author email properties, and so on. And we pass both of those to the check spam method on the Akismet service class. This is going to give us either a true or a false value. True if it's spam, false if it's not spam, if it's a real user. This line will also make sure that the submission gets logged in the Akismet component, so you don't have to do anything special for that. This will return either a true or a false depending on if it's spam or not. Depending on your own application, your own code, you will then need to handle that if it is spam. And finally, we're also catching exceptions, which is mostly if your API key is wrong or if there's some issue connecting to Akismet. You do not get an exception when it's identified as spam. There's one more thing I want to note, which is that Akismet, the package, automatically cleans up any form submissions that are older than 1 month. It does not store this persistently, so whenever a submission has been handled, it will automatically get removed. You do not have to set anything up. You can change the time that you want to keep form submissions if you'd like. All right, that's all for this showcase of the Akismet extra for MODX and how you can use it for protecting against spam. To learn about more cool extras for MODX and core functionality and how to use that, be sure to check out modmore.com/video and subscribe to the channel. And make sure to check out the video. I did it wrong again. It's on that side. It's on that side. Check that video. It's a very interesting video. Bye.